And joining us now with more, his first television interview since taking the gavel, the 55th Speaker of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you, Larry. Welcome to People's House.
How was your week last week?
It was entertaining. I think I built a little name ID. I'm not quite sure.
Actually, I think that's a good way to put it. You know, what's amazing about this, to me, and I may be wrong, but tell me if I'm right, because I talk to a lot of members. I know a lot of people in this room tonight, and a lot of you, thank you, by the way, for coming. And some of you are not going to be on TV, but you came because you wanted to support the Speaker. But I have a feeling that 222 people agree on Jim Jordan's investigation, and that would be into whether the FBI is politicized, the DOJ weaponized.
They weaponized from Homeland, FBI. And, we've watched him get out of control with no check and balance. But last week was tough. But remember what my father always said. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And let me tell you what happened after last week. Our very first bill, we repealed 87,000 IRS agents.
You promised to do that.
We promised to do it. We made it in our commitment to America, which you've talked a lot about, and we'll check it off as they go.
I have my own copy.
Yeah, but you know what else we did next? We just passed the church-style committee that Jim Jordan will run, looking at the weaponization of government. You know what we just passed right now? A select committee on China. And we got 146 Democrats to vote with us. Pelosi would never allow this. I had an agreement with her, and she backed away the night before. So you want to bring jobs back from China to America. You want to stop them from buying our farmland. You want to stop them from stealing our intellectual property. This is where it all starts. And this is only our first couple days in power.
So the power of the purse, which we'll talk about at length, the power of subpoena, those are the two big powers you have. Okay, let's focus on the investigation part. Jim Jordan in appropriations. Then we got James Comer. They'll both be joining us tonight.
Yes.
And he'll be looking into the Biden family syndicate. We know, everybody in this room knows one thing, that Joe Biden lied. When Joe Biden said not one time did he ever talk to his son Hunter about his foreign business dealings, we have photographic evidence and evidence of meetings that had taken place and witnesses that will attest to such.
We've got documents that they denied us until we're in the majority. Do you think the president, in more than 40 years of being elected, why do you think he finally went to the border? Because we were sworn in. He knows what's coming. You've got to secure your border. And we're going to use every power we have to make sure we protect this country and look out for the American taxpayer.
I think last week, at least a part of it, was Republicans around the country were disappointed in past speakers. I'll give one example, John Boehner. I was disappointed in John Boehner. And I think that there were people that wanted the assurances. I had interviewed you enough. I had asked you repeatedly the commitments to America. I have my version right here, which we'll talk about. And they wanted to know these investigations were real. What other investigations?
Well, you've got to hold government accountable. For the whole time the Democrats have been in power, all they've done is increase spending. Why don't we have a check and balance? Think of this. When the Republicans were in power last time for 8 years, you know how much discretionary spending increased in those 8 years? Zero. They were in power for 4 years. They increased it by 30%. They went from spending $4 trillion to $7 trillion. We don't have that type of money. They created inflation. So we've got to get our country under control financially. How do we do that too? Energy policy. Watch what they've done to make us weak. They made our price of gas go up, but they made us weak around the world. We're going to become energy independent. Our border's not secure. But look what they have done to our schools as well, right? We're going to pass a Parents' Bill of Rights. Also, when you think about this as well, when we look at checks and balances, you got Comer, oversight, you got Jim Jordan at judiciary, but every single committee has an oversight committee. So every dollar matters how we spend it, and we're going to be looking at everything. No more blank checks.
Okay, and by the way, you will vote on every appropriations bill independently,
yes.
All 12 of them?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that. I want, what other investigations?
Okay,
Origins
first of all,
COVID?
why don't we know where COVID started? They wouldn't have any hearings on it. We'll have that. Why shouldn't we know what happened in Afghanistan those last 2 months? 13 Gold Star families have a right to know, but more importantly, this nation has a right to know so it never happens again. We should know what happened with China and where the money's going. We know the documents are there. I think the country has a right to know that as well. But the weaponization of what the FBI
Anthony
has
Fauci?
done, well, that goes right into COVID. We have our own ability to oversee that and look into that.
I have a lot of questions whether or not he was honest. What did he know? Did our tax dollars through the NIH, was it funneled through the, what was it, the Echo Alliance, whatever the group was called? Were we giving money to the Wuhan lab of virology where they knew gain-of-function research took place, where they knew coronavirus research took place? Okay, so we have that investigation, the Afghanistan investigation, the FBI, the DOJ, the Biden family investigation. Now let's get to the issue of finances and money and spending. And why don't you explain how this process now will be different? And we're coming up against the debt ceiling vote and what that's going to mean. That might be the first test of how committed the Republican Party in the House is to really holding the line on spending. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong on that. But think for one moment, we cannot, one of the greatest threats we have to this nation is our debt. It makes us weak in every place that we can. We have never been at this high of debt to GDP except during World War II. And what are we funding? Wasteful Washington spending much of the time. So we think if you had a child and you gave them a credit card and they kept hitting the limit, do you just increase the limit or do you change their behavior? This is our moment to change the behavior to make sure that hardworking taxpayer, that we're not wasting their money. You're going to tell me there's not waste out there? So we're going to look at every single dollar spent. We're going to audit it. We're going to make sure we change our behavior, that we can balance our budget and make us stronger.
Many years ago, Connie Mack from Florida, Congressman, the penny plan. I think probably we need the 25-cent plan at this point because the debt has gone up so significantly. Is that something you think about?
We think about a lot. And this is part of our discussion last week, and it was healthy at the end of the day. You might not like it, but we're stronger today to have gone through
I just wish you would have done it before January 3rd.
Yeah, I think we tried.
I talked to a lot of your friends, some in this room, but I won't give them up.
Look, but I think about at the end of the day, everybody found that we had an agreement. That's kind of what our rules package does. We go to germaneness. We also wanted to protect ourselves from the Senate. They won't do their work. They won't pass any appropriation bills, and then they try to jam us right before Christmas with $1.7 trillion. You know what? I went over to the Senate to their lunch, and I said, we'll never take up an omni again. You have to pass your approps bills individually. We'll pass ours, just the way Congress is supposed to work.
By the way, what they did in the Senate, I believe, as a conservative, that was a disgrace.
Yeah.
I think, and they knew you were coming into power, and they knew they could have had more.
Why wouldn't they just wait? If they waited, then we'd have a stronger hand.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be increasing it. And they increase the baseline, where it just adds so much more to our children.
Let's talk about a moment, maybe it comes sooner, maybe it comes later, on the debt ceiling. And you know how the argument will unfold. It'll be Republicans are shutting down government. I've been around this game too long. Government never shuts down. Essential services will exist. Grandma, mom and dad, they're going to get their Social Security check. Medicare is not going to be shut down. The military is not going to be shut down. Now, there might be people that get furloughed, but odds are pretty high that when they get their free vacation, they will get back pay. But that will be the argument. Now the question will be, it'll become a game of chicken. And that is, Republicans are shutting down the government, and they're not willing to raise the debt ceiling, and you're going to say, what?
Well, listen. It doesn't have to come to that. I've already spoken to the president. Let's sit down now. Let's find a way that we can both come together to actually curb the rising debt that we have.
You talked to Joe Biden?
He called me the other day, and this was the first conversation I had with him, right when he went down before he went to
Did he know who you were?
He did at that moment.
Ouch, come on, that's funny.
I don't know that he wanted to talk before.
By the way, you're not responsible for what I say. Go ahead.
But look, we'll work with anybody, but we're also one branch in here. We control Congress. And you know what? We have funding powers. And we want to utilize it to represent the American public. We don't want to put us in any jeopardy whatsoever, but we don't want to just have this runaway spending what they've had, increasing 30% in 4 years.
How much
no
time
American
do you have
household.
before this debt ceiling?
We have probably the summertime.
Okay, so you got plenty of time.
We're working on it now, but we're setting the plan to actually put us on to a path to balance. That's what our discussions were all about.
What's the relationship now like with the leadership in the Senate? Because you were begging them not to do this omnibus, to go forward with a CR instead, a continuing resolution. They didn't do that. They had the best opportunity. So how's the relationship?
Look, I want to empower the Republicans in the Senate. Utilize us. Schumer runs the Senate, but it's a close majority. But why don't they work with us? So I'm setting up every committee chair here to work with the ranking Republican over there. Let's talk with our bills together. Let's take their amendments, put them into ours, and move them over there to empower them to be stronger. If I sit right now, I've told Schumer, do not send an omnibus over here. If you don't pass the appropriation bills, we're not taking it up. So we'll pass our appropriation bills and then send a continuing resolution. We're not shutting down the government. We're doing our work and we're setting it up where the American public is protected, but we're also putting a little cut on there, let you talk, like the penny plan.
You're using the power that was given to you by the American people.
Exactly.
And by the way, that's fiscal responsibility.
Think about this.
And one of your commitments.
In the election, look, I know Republicans may not have done well, but in the last two elections, the Republicans in the House did very well. Maybe the governors didn't, maybe the senators, but we won every single time.
That's why you're in the majority.
They fired the Democrats and they fired Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
We are going to stand up for exactly what the commitment said. An economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a future that's built on freedom, and a government that's held accountable.
Let me ask you this question. What did you make of this story about Joe Biden and top secret classified information, especially after what he said about President Trump, especially after the raid at Mar-a-Lago, especially after Hillary Clinton? Remember the July 2016 press conference, Jim Comey, no reasonable prosecutor would ever prosecute way more top secret classified information, never mind the deleted emails with BleachBit and the destroyed devices with hammers and the removal of SIM cards. What does that mean now in terms of all those Democrats that wanted Donald Trump arrested almost immediately?
They're going to have to eat their words. But the hypocrisy, think about this. They've gotten away with so much for so long. This was discovered before the last election, just like the laptop. They think they can lie to the American public. They think they can control the media, control companies to shut down if one media company writes about it. They think they're above the law. Why weren't they raided? Why didn't they have the FBI coming in? Why didn't he in 60 Minutes say, well, I understand that because I bet I have the same problem? Did Barack Obama have some of this when he was writing his book? Does Hillary Clinton have some? And you know what? All those people have been in government for years. President Trump just ran for president. Do you think he knew everything? You think he went and moved his own boxes? And you know what? They were locked away. Biden's were not. And how many years after did he have them?
The FBI actually went to Mar-a-Lago. They looked at all those documents. They asked for a padlock. The padlock request was granted. And then all of a sudden a raid.
They think the law doesn't apply to them. They think they write their own. And that's what infuriates the American public. America believes in fairness and honesty, and that's not what we're getting from them.
And we are just getting things started. And on that note, we continue with Speaker McCarthy. He'll stay with us. We'll check in with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, and, well, the big investigations will be James Comer and Jim Jordan. They will join us, and much more. As we continue, we're in Washington, D.C. We're in the swamp. We're only here for 24 hours or less, and we'll be back in just a short time. Stay with us.